Hi, it's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Never open a gift from your husband without checking what's really inside first. Because what I found in my anniversary necklace almost killed me. And when I finally cracked it open, I realized the person I married was not who I thought he was. My name is Sarah, and for 3 months I was dying. Slowly. Every single morning I woke up feeling like my insides were on fire. I couldn't keep food down. My hair started falling out in clumps. I lost 20 pounds. The doctors ran every test imaginable. Blood work, scans, biopsies. Nothing. They told me it was stress. They told me it was anxiety. They told me to see a therapist. But I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. What I didn't know was that the answer was hanging around my neck the entire time. It started on our 5th wedding anniversary. Daniel had been acting strange for weeks. Distant. Cold. He'd come home late from work, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked about it, he'd get defensive. Angry. He'd accuse me of being paranoid, of not trusting him. And maybe I was paranoid. Maybe 5 years of marriage had made me suspicious of every little thing. But then came the anniversary dinner. He took me to this expensive Italian restaurant downtown. The kind with cloth napkins and waiters who pour your water before you even realize your glass is empty. We sat by the window, and the city lights reflected off his face as he slid a small velvet box across the table. "Open it," he said, with this smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Inside was the most beautiful necklace I'd ever seen. A delicate gold chain with an ornate pendant. The pendant itself was about the size of a quarter, intricately designed with swirling patterns and what looked like tiny gemstones embedded in the surface. In the center was a small emerald, my birthstone. "Daniel, it's beautiful," I whispered, genuinely touched. Despite everything, despite the distance between us, this felt like him trying. Like he still cared. "Let me put it on you," he said, standing up and moving behind my chair. His fingers were cold against my neck as he clasped it. The pendant settled right at the hollow of my throat, and I remember thinking it felt heavier than it looked. Substantial. Like it meant something. "Don't take it off," he said as he sat back down. "I want you to wear it every day. To remember that I love you." Promised I would. That was 3 months ago. The sickness started 2 days later. I woke up with my stomach churning. Barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. I figured it was something I ate. Food poisoning maybe. But it didn't stop. Every morning, like clockwork, I'd wake up nauseous. By the afternoon I'd feel a little better, but never completely normal. There was always this underlying feeling of being unwell. Like I was coming down with the flu, but it never quite hit. Week 2, my hands started shaking. Just little tremors at first. I'd be holding my coffee cup, and it would rattle against the saucer. Daniel noticed. "You should see a doctor," he said, but he said it the way you'd comment on the weather. Casual. Unconcerned. So I did. Dr. Morrison was my primary care physician. She'd been my doctor for 7 years. She knew my medical history inside and out. She ran blood tests, checked my thyroid, tested for diabetes, anemia, vitamin deficiencies. Everything came back normal. "Stress can manifest physically," she told me, writing a prescription for anti-anxiety medication. "Are things okay at home?" I lied and said yes. The pills didn't help. If anything, I felt worse. By week 4, I couldn't keep anything down except water and plain crackers. I'd lost 15 pounds. My clothes hung off me like I was a coat hanger. My skin took on this grayish tint, and dark circles appeared under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. My hair started falling out in week 5. I was in the shower when I noticed clumps of it coming out in my hands. I stood there watching it swirl down the drain, and for the first time I was genuinely terrified. This wasn't stress. This wasn't anxiety. Something was really wrong with me. Back to the doctor. This time she sent me to a specialist. then another specialist, gastroenterologist, endocrinologist, oncologist. That last one scared me the most. Cancer. They were checking for cancer, but all the tests came back negative. No tumors, no autoimmune disorders, no infections, no parasites. Nothing that would explain why a healthy 32-year-old woman was wasting away. We need to consider the possibility that this is psychosomatic, one doctor told me. Psychosomatic. All in my head. I wanted to scream at him that hair loss isn't psychosomatic. Weight loss isn't psychosomatic. But I just nodded and left. Meanwhile, Daniel was becoming more attentive. Almost too attentive. He'd make me tea every morning, insist I drink it all. He'd cook dinner and watch me like a hawk to make sure I at least tried to eat. He'd ask about my doctor appointments with this concerned look on his face. "I'm worried about you," he'd say, taking my hand. "You're wasting away." And the whole time I never took off the necklace. I wore it in the shower. I wore it to bed. I wore it to every doctor's appointment. It had become part of me, this constant weight at my throat. Sometimes I'd touch it without thinking, running my fingers over the intricate designs, feeling the cool metal against my skin. In week 8, I started having headaches. Blinding, splitting headaches that would come out of nowhere and leave me curled up in a dark room for hours. I went to a neurologist. He ordered an MRI. Again, nothing. My brain was perfectly healthy. "You're making yourself sick with worry," he said. "You need to relax." I stopped going to doctors after that. What was the point? They couldn't find anything wrong with me, so clearly I was just crazy. Clearly I was doing this to myself somehow. Week 10 I could barely get out of bed. I'd taken a leave of absence from work. I spent my days lying on the couch watching the ceiling fan spin, feeling my body slowly shut down. Daniel would leave for work in the morning and come home in the evening, and I'd barely have moved. "Maybe you should see a psychiatrist," he suggested one night. This could all be depression. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was depressed and didn't even realize it. Maybe my mind was destroying my body from the inside out. But then came the day on the subway. It was week 11. I'd forced myself to leave the apartment to prove that I could still function like a normal human being. I just needed to go to the pharmacy, pick up another prescription for nausea medication that didn't work, and come home. Simple. I took the subway because I didn't trust myself to drive anymore. The tremors in my hands had gotten worse, and sometimes I'd zone out for seconds at a time, losing track of where I was or what I was doing. The train was crowded. Rush hour. I stood holding onto a pole, feeling dizzy and nauseous, counting the stops until mine. People pressed in around me, the smell of perfume and sweat and coffee making my stomach turn. That's when I felt it. A hand on mine. I looked down to see an elderly man standing next to me. He was small, hunched over, with weathered brown skin and kind eyes behind thick glasses. He wore a jeweler's loop on a chain around his neck. His fingers, gnarled with age, rested gently on top of my hand where I gripped the pole. "Excuse me," I said, trying to pull away, but his grip tightened. "The necklace," he said quietly. His eyes locked on the pendant at my throat. "You need to take it off." My free hand instinctively went to the pendant. "What?" "I can see what's inside," he whispered, leaning closer. "I've been a jeweler for 53 years. I know when something is wrong." The train lurched and I stumbled. He steadied me with surprising strength for someone so old. "You don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "My husband gave this to me for our anniversary. It's precious to me." "Open it," he said urgently. "That pendant opens. There's a seam right along the edge. You can't see it unless you know what to look for." I stared at him like he was insane. "It doesn't open. It's just a pendant." "Look at me," he commanded, and something in his voice made me obey. His eyes were deadly serious. I'm getting off at the next stop. Come with me. Let me show you. If I'm wrong, you can go on your way and forget you ever met me. But if I'm right, your life may depend on it. The rational part of my brain said this was crazy. Don't get off the subway with a strange old man. But the part of my brain that had been screaming that something was wrong for 3 months, the part the doctors wouldn't listen to, that part said yes. The doors opened at the next stop. The old man shuffled off and I followed. The subway platform was nearly empty. Just us and a few other people hurrying toward the exits. The old man led me to a bench and sat down, patting the spot next to him. My name is Samuel, he said. I own a jewelry shop 2 blocks from here. Been there for 30 years. I sat, clutching my purse in my lap. Sarah, I need you to take off the necklace and hand it to me. My hands went to the clasp. I'd worn it for so long that I'd almost forgotten how to remove it. My fingers fumbled with the tiny mechanism, and for a moment I wondered if it had somehow fused to my skin. But finally it came loose. The moment the pendant left contact with my skin, I felt different. Not better exactly, but different. Lighter somehow. I handed it to Samuel. He pulled the jeweler's loop from around his neck and positioned it over one eye, holding the pendant up to the light. His fingers traced the edge of the design, pressing and probing. There, he muttered. Right there. He pulled a small tool from his pocket, something that looked like a tiny screwdriver, and inserted it into a spot on the pendant I'd never noticed before. A nearly invisible seam. He twisted gently and I heard a soft click. The pendant popped open like a locket. Inside was a compartment, and inside that compartment was a small piece of cloth, stained with a dark residue. Samuel's face went pale. He sniffed the cloth carefully, then immediately pulled back. How long have you been wearing this? He demanded. 3 months. Why? What is it? He stood abruptly, holding the pendant away from both of us like it was radioactive. This cloth has been soaked in something. I can't tell you exactly what without testing it, but I've seen this before. Years ago, a woman came into my shop with a similar piece. Her husband had been poisoning her slowly through a pendant just like this one. The poison transfers through skin contact. Arsenic, most likely, or thallium, something that absorbs through the skin over time. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the bench to keep from falling. That's impossible, I whispered. Daniel would never. He loves me. Samuel's expression was grim. Does he? Think about it. Really think about it. Has he been encouraging you to wear this every day? Has he been the one pushing you to keep it on? Daniel's voice echoed in my memory. Don't take it off. I want you to wear it every day. Every morning watching me touch it. Every night making sure it was still around my neck. The way he'd smile whenever he saw me wearing it. We need to call the police, Samuel said. Right now. But I shook my head. I stood up, my legs shaking, and looked at the pendant in his hands. That beautiful, deadly thing my husband had clasped around my neck, while whispering that he loved me. I need proof, I said. If I go to the police now with just this, he'll deny everything. He'll say I'm crazy, that I've been sick and I'm not thinking straight. The doctors already think I'm losing my mind. Samuel considered this. What are you going to do? Can you test? What's on that cloth? Can you tell me exactly what it is? He nodded slowly. I have a friend who works in a lab. He can run tests. It'll take a few days. Do it. And don't tell anyone. I need to be absolutely sure before I make a move. He gave me his business card and carefully placed the pendant in a small plastic bag. Be careful. If he realizes you're not wearing it anymore, if he suspects you know, I'll tell him I lost it, that the clasp broke on the subway and it fell off. We exchanged phone numbers. I took the card and the empty necklace chain and walked out of that subway station on trembling legs. When I got home, Daniel was already there. He never came home early. Never. There you are, he said, smiling. I was getting worried. How are you feeling? Tired, I said, moving past him toward the bedroom. His hand caught my arm. Where's your necklace? My heart stopped. It fell off. On the subway. The clasp must have broken. I'm sorry, I know how much it meant to you. His eyes searched my face, and for just a moment, I saw something dark flicker there. Anger maybe, or fear. But then he smiled again and pulled me into a hug. Don't worry about it, he said softly. It's just jewelry. I'm just glad you're okay. His arms felt like a cage. Over the next 3 days, I pretended everything was normal. I pretended to still be sick, still wasting away, even though I was already starting to feel better. The nausea was gone. The tremors were fading. I could keep food down again. I caught Daniel watching me sometimes, his expression unreadable. On the 3rd day, Samuel called. It's thallium sulfate, he said without preamble. Dissolved in DMSO dimethyl sulfoxide. That's a carrier that allows substances to be absorbed through the skin. Thallium is a poison that builds up in the body over time, causes all the symptoms you described. Hair loss, nausea, tremors, neurological problems. It's almost impossible to detect in standard medical tests, unless they're specifically looking for it. And it's fatal if exposure continues long enough. You're lucky you took it off when you did. Another month and you'd probably be dead. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. You're sure? I had it tested twice. There's no doubt. Sarah, this was deliberate. Someone put this in that pendant specifically to poison you. You need to go to the police now. I will. Thank you, Samuel. You saved my life. I hung up and sat there for a long moment, holding the phone in my shaking hands. My husband had tried to kill me. The man I'd loved for 5 years, the man I'd married, had given me a beautiful gift laced with poison and watched me die slowly. Why? I heard the front door open. Daniel was home. I walked out of the bedroom on steady legs. He was in the kitchen pulling groceries out of a bag. He looked up when I entered and smiled. Feeling any better today? Actually, yes, I said. Much better. Something in my tone made him pause. That's great. What changed? I figured out what was making me sick. His hand stilled on a carton of milk. Oh, it was the necklace, Daniel. The beautiful anniversary present you gave me. The one you told me never to take off. The mask dropped. Just like that. His face went blank, empty, and I saw the truth written there. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. Thallium sulfate in DMSO. Absorbed through skin contact over time. Very clever. Impossible to detect unless you know exactly what you're looking for. He set the milk down slowly. Who told you that? Does it matter? I had the pendant tested. I have proof. And I've already given a copy of that proof to someone safe, with instructions to go to the police if anything happens to me. I was bluffing about that last part, but he didn't need to know that. Daniel's jaw tightened. For a moment we just stood there, staring at each other across the kitchen island. 5 years of marriage reduced to this. A standoff. Why? I finally asked. Just tell me why. He laughed. Actually laughed. You really want to know? Yes. The life insurance policy. $2 million if you die of natural causes. And with all those medical records showing the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with you, it would have been ruled natural causes. Unexplained illness. They'd probably have said it was some rare disease or genetic condition they missed. $2 million, I repeated numbly. You were going to murder me for money. Not just money, he said, and now there was venom in his voice. Freedom. Do you know what it's like being married to you, Sarah? You're boring. Predictable. You want the same thing every day. Dinner at 6. Bed by 10. The same conversations, the same routine. I've been dying of boredom for 3 years. So divorce me. And split everything 50-50? No. This way I get everything. The house, the savings, the insurance money. And I get to play the grieving widower. Everyone feels sorry for the man who lost his wife to a mysterious illness. I'd probably have women lining up to comfort me. The cruelty in his voice was like a slap. This stranger wearing my husband's face. You won't get away with this, I said. Won't I? You have no proof that I knew what was in the pendant. I could say I bought it from some jeweler that I had no idea what was inside. You have no proof I put it there. No proof I knew anything about it. He was right. Without evidence directly linking him to the poison, without proof that he knew what was in the pendant, a good lawyer could create reasonable doubt. But I had something better than proof. You're right, I said, reaching into my pocket. I don't have proof that you knew. I pulled out my phone and held it up. The voice recording app was still running. The red dot blinked in the corner of the screen. But I do now. Daniel's face went white. He lunged for the phone, but I was already moving, running for the front door. I made it into the hallway. Before he caught up to me, his hand grabbing my hair and yanking me backward, I screamed. The neighbor's door opened, an elderly woman peering out. Call the police, I shouted. He's trying to kill me. Daniel let go immediately, backing away with his hands up. She's confused, he said to the neighbor. She's been very sick, hallucinating sometimes. I'm trying to help her. But I held up my phone, still recording. I have his confession. He poisoned me. It's all on here. The neighbor looked between us, uncertain. Then she pulled out her own phone. I'm calling 911, she said. Daniel ran. Just turned and ran down the hallway toward the stairs. I heard his footsteps pounding, then the stairwell door slamming. He didn't make it far. The police caught him at the building's exit. Apparently, when your neighbor calls 911 saying there's a domestic disturbance, they respond pretty quickly. That was 4 months ago. The police arrested Daniel that night. The recording I'd made was enough for a warrant. And when they searched our apartment, they found more thallium compounds hidden in his office. He'd been researching poisoning methods for over a year. His computer history was full of searches about undetectable poisons, insurance fraud, and how to fake grief. There was also evidence of an affair. He'd been seeing someone from his office for 18 months. They'd planned to take the insurance money and move to Costa Rica together. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution had everything. The pendant with the poison, the confession on my phone, his computer records, testimony from Samuel, the jeweler who saved my life, testimony from my doctors about my mysterious illness and sudden recovery. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue that I'd poisoned myself for attention, that the recording was fabricated, that this was all some elaborate scheme to frame an innocent man. The jury didn't buy it. He was convicted of attempted murder and insurance fraud, sentenced to 25 years. I never visited him in prison, never wrote, never looked back. My health improved rapidly once the poison was out of my system. The hair grew back. The weight came back. The tremors stopped. Within 2 months, I felt like myself again. Better than myself, actually, because I was free. I sold the apartment and moved across the country. Started fresh in a new city where nobody knew my story. I changed my name, changed my hair, changed everything about my life that reminded me of those 5 years with a man who smiled while watching me die. Samuel and I still keep in touch. He sends me cards on holidays. I send him pictures of my new life. He's the grandfather I never had, and I'm the granddaughter he never had. Funny how a chance encounter on a subway can create family. Sometimes I think about the women who weren't as lucky as me, the ones whose husbands succeeded, the ones whose deaths were ruled natural causes or unexplained illnesses, the ones who trusted the wrong person and paid with their lives. I think about how close I came, how if Samuel hadn't been on that train, if he hadn't recognized what he was seeing, If I hadn't listened to a strange old man telling me to take off my necklace, I'd be dead right now. Buried. Mourned by the man who killed me. The doctors told me that another 3 weeks of exposure, and the damage would have been irreversible. I would have died, and they never would have found the cause. Just another mysterious case. Another woman who got sick and faded away. But I didn't fade away. I'm still here. And Daniel is in prison where he belongs. I don't date anymore. I don't trust like that anymore. Maybe someday I will again, but not now. Not yet. The idea of letting someone that close, of giving them that much power over my life, it terrifies me in a way nothing else does. But I'm alive. That's what matters. I'm alive, and every morning when I wake up without nausea, without pain, without fear, I touch my throat where that pendant used to rest, and I remember. I remember how close I came. I remember that sometimes the most dangerous thing in your life can be the person sleeping next to you. I remember that gut feelings exist for a reason, and that when something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Most of all, I remember Samuel, a stranger who cared more about my life than the man who promised to love me forever. If you're reading this, if you're sick and the doctors can't find anything wrong, if someone in your life is being too attentive about something specific, if your gut is screaming that something isn't right, listen to it. Trust yourself. Question everything. Because sometimes the most beautiful gifts come with the ugliest intentions. And sometimes the person who says they love you is the one trying to kill you. I never wear necklaces anymore. The day after Daniel's arrest, the police detective assigned to my case came to the hospital where I was being treated for thallium poisoning. Detective Maria Rodriguez sat beside my bed and told me something that made my blood run cold. They'd found a journal in Daniel's desk drawer. A detailed journal. He'd been documenting my decline like a scientist recording an experiment. Every symptom, every doctor's visit, every pound I lost. He rated his own performance, noted when he thought he was being too obvious or not careful enough. On one page he'd written, "Sarah threw up twice today. Hair loss accelerating. She's so weak she can barely stand. Soon." The word soon was underlined 3 times. Detective Rodriguez also told me about the other woman. Her name was Jennifer Chan, and she worked in Daniel's accounting firm. They'd met at a company retreat 2 years into our marriage. Jennifer knew everything. She knew about the necklace, about the poison, about the insurance money. The police found text messages between them where they discuss what they'd do with the money. Private islands, luxury cars, a villa in Costa Rica. In one message Daniel had sent her a photo of me sleeping, so thin and sick I looked almost dead. Jennifer had replied with a heart emoji and the words, "Almost there, baby." What destroyed me most was learning that Jennifer had helped him plan it. She was the one who researched which poisons would be hardest to detect. She found the jeweler who made the custom pendant with a hidden compartment, some guy in Brooklyn who didn't ask questions if you paid enough. She even helped Daniel practice his grief face in the mirror. The police found a video on her phone of them role-playing. Daniel pretending to cry while Jennifer critiqued his performance, telling him to make it more convincing, to let his voice crack more. They were laughing the whole time. The insurance company told me something equally disturbing. Daniel had increased my life insurance policy 6 times in the past year. Every time I signed the papers, he told me it was just a standard update that everyone our age should have good coverage. I never thought to question it. Why would I? He was my husband. I trusted him completely. Each time he increased it, he forged my signature on additional documents that named him as the sole beneficiary. By the time he gave me the necklace, my life was worth $2.4 million. That's what I was to him. A number. Payout. Samuel called me every day during my recovery. During one call, he told me something that still haunts me. He said he almost didn't approach me on that subway. He'd noticed the necklace immediately because of how I kept touching my throat, the way people do when something feels wrong. But he thought about minding his own business. He was tired. It had been a long day. He almost stayed seated and let me walk out of his life. Then he saw how sick I looked, how my hands shook, and something inside him wouldn't let him stay quiet. He told me, "Sarah, I believe God put me on that train for you. I'm not even a religious man, but I believe that." My mother flew in from Seattle when she heard what happened. She sat by my hospital bed and cried for 3 hours straight. Then she told me something I never knew. She'd never liked Daniel. From the very first time she met him, something felt off. She said his smile never reached his eyes, that he watched me too carefully, like he was studying me instead of loving me. But she never said anything because I seemed happy, and she didn't want to be that mother who interfered. Now she blamed herself. She kept saying, "I should have trusted my gut. I should have warned you." I told her it wasn't her fault, but I could see she didn't believe me. The prosecutors told me they wanted to charge both Daniel and Jennifer with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Jennifer's lawyer tried to make a deal. She claimed she thought it was all just fantasy, that she never believed Daniel would actually go through with it. But the text messages proved otherwise. There was one where she'd written, "Is it working yet? Is she getting sicker?" And another where Daniel replied, "She's fading fast. Another month tops." Jennifer had responded, "Can't wait to be rich with you." Her lawyer eventually advised her to plead guilty. She got 15 years. During Daniel's trial, his defense attorney tried to paint me as the villain. He suggested I was having an affair, that I'd found out about Jennifer and decided to frame Daniel out of revenge. He pointed out that I had no witnesses to Samuel's discovery except Samuel himself. He implied we were working together, that maybe Samuel and I had planted the poison ourselves. It was absurd, but I watched the jury's faces and saw doubt creeping in. That's when the prosecution brought out Daniel's laptop. The computer forensics team had recovered deleted files showing Daniel had been researching how to poison your spouse for 14 months before our anniversary. The forensics expert testified about what they found in Daniel's search history. He'd looked up dozens of different poisons: ricin, arsenic, cyanide. He'd visited forums where people discussed theoretical ways to commit the perfect murder. He'd read medical journals about thallium poisoning symptoms to know what to expect. He'd even searched for, how long does thallium stay in the body after death? And can medical examiners detect thallium in autopsy? The jury heard all of this. I watched their faces change from doubt to disgust. One woman in the back row started crying. What nobody expected was Daniel's mother to testify against him. Eleanor had always been kind to me, but I assumed she'd defend her son no matter what. Instead, she took the stand and told the court about Daniel's childhood. How he'd killed the family dog when he was 12 and tried to make it look like an accident. How he'd stolen money from her purse for years and blamed it on his younger sister. How he'd once told her at age 15 that he'd marry someone rich and successful, and if that didn't work out, he'd find another way to get what he deserved. She said, "My son is a sociopath. I've known it since he was a child. I just hoped maybe love would change him. It didn't." She looked right at me when she said, "I'm sorry I didn't warn you." The medical testimony was brutal to sit through. Dr. Morrison, my primary care physician, explained to the jury how thallium poisoning mimics so many other conditions that it's almost never the first diagnosis doctors consider. She said that in all her years of practice, she'd never seen a case of deliberate thallium poisoning. It's exotic, unusual, the kind of thing you read about in mystery novels, not real life. She testified that if I'd continued wearing that necklace for another 3 weeks, I would have suffered complete organ failure. My kidneys would have shut down first, then my liver. I would have died in excruciating pain, and they likely would have attributed it to some unknown autoimmune disease. A toxicologist explained to the jury exactly how the poisoning worked. The DMSO acted as a carrier, allowing the thallium sulfate to penetrate my skin every time the pendant touched my throat. Over time, the poison accumulated in my body, attacking my nervous system and organs. He brought charts showing the progressive damage thallium causes: hair loss, peripheral neuropathy, kidney damage, brain damage. He showed photos of other thallium poisoning victims. Some of them looked like Holocaust survivors, just skin and bones. He said, Miss Sarah was approximately 3 weeks away from irreversible neurological damage. Another month and she would have been dead. The prosecution also called the jeweler who made the pendant. His name was Marcus Webb, and he ran a small custom jewelry shop in Brooklyn that operated mostly in cash. He admitted Daniel had come to him with specific requirements. He wanted a pendant that could hold a small cloth, with a hidden compartment that wouldn't be obvious to anyone examining it. Marcus said he thought it was for hiding love notes or a lock of hair, something romantic. He never imagined it would be used for murder. When the prosecutor asked if he felt guilty, Marcus broke down on the stand. He said, "I made the weapon that almost killed an innocent woman. I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life." Jennifer Chen's testimony was perhaps the most damning. After she pleaded guilty, she agreed to testify against Daniel in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told the court everything: how Daniel had complained about me constantly, calling me boring and useless; how he joked about wanting me dead but making it look natural; how she'd taken him seriously and started researching methods; how they'd spent months planning the perfect murder. She testified that Daniel had said, "The beauty of this plan is that even if they suspect something, they'll never prove it. Thallium is nearly impossible to detect, and I'll be the grieving husband. No one suspects the grieving husband." But the most chilling part of Jennifer's testimony was when she described watching videos of me that Daniel had secretly recorded. He'd installed hidden cameras in our apartment, in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the living room. He'd recorded me getting sicker and sicker, and he'd sent the videos to Jennifer. They'd watched them together, she said, analyzing my symptoms like doctors studying a patient. In one video, I'm lying on the bathroom floor after throwing up, too weak to stand, and you can hear Daniel in the background on the phone with Jennifer saying, "It's working perfectly." Jennifer testified that they'd even made a game of guessing how much longer I had to live. The defense tried to argue that the videos were fabricated, but the digital forensics team confirmed they were real. They'd been taken over a period of 2 months, and the metadata proved they hadn't been altered. The jury watched some of them. I couldn't watch. I sat there staring at my hands while they played footage of me at my sickest, my weakest, my most vulnerable. I heard gasps from the jury box. I heard someone crying. When it was over, the judge called a recess because several jury members were too upset to continue. After the videos, Daniel's lawyer knew the case was lost. He tried one last desperate move. He put Daniel on the stand against the advice of everyone. Daniel tried to claim he was innocent, that Jennifer had acted alone, that he'd had no idea what was in the pendant. But the prosecutor destroyed him on cross-examination. She asked him about the searches on his computer. He said someone must have hacked it. She asked about the videos. He said Jennifer must have recorded them secretly. She asked about the journal documenting my decline. He claimed it was fiction, a story he was writing. Every answer made him look worse. Then the prosecutor asked the question that sealed his fate. "Mr. Daniel, if you loved your wife so much, why didn't you visit her in the hospital after her collapse? Why didn't you seem concerned when she was dying?" Daniel stuttered. He said he was in shock. The prosecutor pulled out phone records showing he'd been texting Jennifer the entire time I was in the hospital, making plans for their future. She read one text aloud. "When this is over and I have the money, first thing we're doing is getting you that diamond ring you wanted." The text was sent 2 hours after I was admitted to the emergency room for thallium poisoning. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they came back, every single one of them looked at Daniel with pure hatred. The forewoman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder in the first degree. Conspiracy to commit murder. Insurance fraud. Assault with a deadly weapon. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. When they led Daniel out of the courtroom in handcuffs, he looked at me for the first time since the trial started. I expected anger or hatred. Instead, I saw nothing. His eyes were empty, dead, like looking at a shark. At sentencing, the judge let me make a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium and looked at Daniel sitting there in his orange jumpsuit. I told him, "You took 3 months of my life. You took my health, my hair, my sense of safety. You took my ability to trust people. But you didn't take my life and you didn't break me. I'm still here. I survived you." Then I turned to the judge and said, "This man is a predator. He planned my murder meticulously. He watched me suffer and felt nothing. He deserves every year of prison he gets." The judge sentenced him to 25 years without possibility of parole. He also ordered Daniel to pay full restitution for my medical bills, which totaled over $300,000. If this story made you think twice about the people you trust, subscribe for more true stories you won't believe.